Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome to Leisure Gaming. I am Leisure. Fish have finally entered Master Duel and I finally got my hooks into them. If you're like me and this is your first interaction with them, Ghoti, or the proper pronunciation is Fosh or Fish, plays in a similar manner of Tearlaments in the sense that they synchro summon on your opponent's turn to disrupt their entire play. So let's take a look. To start with the deck profile, we have one Supe. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon one Oracle of the Sun from your deck, and if you do, double its attack. Also, return it to the hand during the end phase of this turn. Now, you'll never use this effect. This card is primarily here for the Supe package, which helps get you into your Synchro level 6 monster very quickly. Next are 3 Beautiful Princess, and this is a great one-card starter for this deck. When this card is normal or special summon, you can banish this card, special summon one level 4 or lower fish monster from your deck, except Princess. You can only use this effect once per turn. You're primarily going to be targeting your lifeless leaf fish, which we'll talk about later. Next are 3 Maxis to help increase the draw power when your opponent starts to special summon. Next is 1 Hop Air Squadron. During your opponent's main phase, you can target one face-up monster you control, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon one synchro monster using only this card you control and that target. This is a great way to get into a Baron de Fleur on your opponent's turn. Next are 3 Paces. You banish this card you control, special summon one fish monster from your hand, except Paces. During the standby phase of the next turn after this card was banished, you can special summon this banished card. During your opponent's main phase, if this card was special summoned this turn, you can immediately, after the effect resolves, synchro summon one fish synchro monster using this card you control. Next are 2 Shift, and you can definitely run this at 1. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one fish monster you control. It gains 500 attack until the end of this turn. During the standby phase of the next turn this card was banished, you can special summon this banished card. During your opponent's main phase, if this card was special summoned, immediately after the effect resolves, synchro summon one fish synchro monster using this card you control. Next up are 2 Zep, and you can definitely run this at 3. You can banish this card from your hand, then target one fish monster in your graveyard and banish it. During your opponent's turn, if this card is banished, you can special summon it. If this card is special summoned, you can then synchro summon one fish synchro monster using this card you control. We have 3 Ash Blossoms. Next are 2 Silent Angler. If you control a water monster, you can special summon this card, but you cannot special summon monsters from the hand for the rest of this turn. Now, this card is a great way to get into your Abyss Dweller and your Stealth Kraken. Next are 3 Lifeless Leaf Fish, which we mentioned earlier when we talked about Princess. When this card is summoned, you can send one fish monster from your deck to the graveyard except Leaf Fish. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 3 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle those into your deck, and then draw 1 card. Now, when you do summon Lifeless Leaf Fish, your main target is going to be your Shift. Unless you already have Shift in the grave, then you can try for something else. We have 1 Ixeep. If a fish monster is banished, you can special summon this card from your hand. During the standby phase of the next turn after this card was banished, you can target 1 Ghoti trap in your banish or in your graveyard and set that target. We have 2 Mina Aruka. This is another great card that will help get into your level 4 Exceeds. When a water monster effect is activated, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can banish one face-up fish, sea serpent, or aqua monster you control, then target one face-up card on the field and negate its effects until the end of your opponent's turn. We have 3 Supe Dustwalker for the Supe package, which I mentioned earlier. You can discard 1 card and special summon this card from your hand in defense position. Then you can special summon 1 Supe from your hand or deck. You cannot special summon monsters for the extra deck for the rest of the turn you activate this effect, except Synchro monsters. Next are 2 Abyss Sharks. If this card is used for the XE summon of a number monster, you can treat it as a level 3 or 4 monster. If all monsters you control are water, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, add 1 level 3, 4, or 5 fish monster from the deck to your hand, except the Abyss Shark. For the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon monsters except water monsters. Also, double the first battle damage inflicted to your opponent this turn by your number monster battling another monster. Next are 2 Snowpios. During the main phase, you can banish 2 fish monsters from your hand and or graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, you can target 1 face-up card on the field, banish it when it leaves the field. If this card is banished, you can banish 1 fish monster from your graveyard and then add this card to your hand. Going on to the spells and traps, we have 1 Triple Tactics Talent. If your opponent has activated a monster effect during your main phase this turn, activate one of these effects. Draw 2 cards. Take control of 1 monster your opponent controls till the end phase, or look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 card from it and shuffle it into the deck. Next is 1 The Moist Distant Deepest Depths. While you control a fish synchro monster, this card cannot be destroyed or banished by card effects. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. You can banish 1 fish monster from your hand or graveyard, add 1 Ghoti monster from your deck to your hand. If a fish monster is normal or special summoned to your field while this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 fish monster you control, banish it, and if you do, add this card to your hand. So this is a great way to start your combos and to search out whatever it is that you need. Of course, we have the 2 Called by the Graves and the 3 Infinite Impermanence. Going on to the extra deck, we have 2 Orion Posts. If this card is Synchro Summon, you can banish 1 level 6 or lower fish monster from your deck. Your primary target for this part of the effect is going to be Zep. If this card is sent to the graveyard as Synchro material, you can target 1 fish monster in your graveyard, banish that target. Then you can add 1 fish monster with an equal or lower level from your deck to your hand. The target in the graveyard that you will banish will be Orion Post itself, because then you'll use that effect to search out your Snopios. Next is 1 White Aura Whale. When this card is Synchro Summon, you can destroy all your opponent's attack position monsters. This card can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase, and it will also inflict piercing damage when it attacks a defense position monster. Now, if this card you control is destroyed by an opponent's card, either by battle or card effect, and sent to the graveyard, you can banish 1 other water monster from your graveyard and special summon this card, and if you do, it is then treated as a tuner. Next, we have 1 Battle Wasp Hammer the Conquering Bow. If this card is Synchro Summoned using a Synchro monster as material, it can make a second attack during the battle phase. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can make all monsters your opponent currently controls lose 1,000 attack and defense. At the end of the battle phase, if your opponent has not taken any battle damage, you can inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent for each Battle Wasp monster in your graveyard. 1 Adamancipator Risen. During your main phase, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, and if you do, you can return all cards your opponent controls to the hand up to the number of excavated rock monsters. Also place the excavated cards on the bottom of the deck in any order. Now, when your opponent activates a spell or trap or effect while a water monster is in your graveyard, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Next are 2 Ascan. If this card is Synchro Summoned, you can target 1 fish monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls and banish them. You're going to target yourself as part of that banishing. If this card is banished, you can banish 1 fish monster from your graveyard to then special summon this card. Next is 1 Ghoti. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that opponent's monster. During your opponent's standby phase, you can banish this card. Then, if monsters used for the material for this card are all in your graveyard, you can special summon all of them, but banish them when they leave the field. We have 1 Baron de Fleur, which will help with your Omni Negates and for destroying 1 card on the field. Next is 1 Ghoti of the Deep Beyond, which is the boss monster for this deck, and if you have 2, I'd highly suggest trying to run 2. The original attack of this card becomes 500 times the number of banished monsters, and that's your banished and your opponent's banished. If this card is Synchro Summoned during your opponent's turn, you can banish all cards on the field, that includes itself. During the standby phase, the next turn after this card was banished from the monster zone. Next is 1 Abyss Dweller to lock out your opponent's graveyard, especially in this format of tier limits. Next is 1 number 4 Stealth Kraken. All face-up monsters on the field become water. Once per turn during the main phase, you can destroy 1 water monster your opponent controls, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the attack. If this XE summon card is destroyed, you can then special summon Stealth Kraken spawns from the extra deck up to the number of materials this card had. Then you can attach up to 1 water monster from your graveyard to each of those special summon monsters. Next are 2 Stealth Kraken spawn. Once per turn during the main phase, you can destroy 1 water monster your opponent controls. If this card special summoned by the effect of a number XE monster is destroyed, you can special summon other Stealth Kraken monsters from your graveyard up to the number of materials this card had. Then you can attach up to 1 water monster from your graveyard to each of those special summon monsters as material. And 1 Abyss Keeper. If this card is link summoned, you can special summon 1 fish monster from your hand to your zone this card points to. You can target 1 other fish monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls and banish those cards. So this is a great way to get rid of that opponent's boss monster. Also, if you're looking to run a second Ghoti of the Deep Beyond, maybe dropping the Abyss Keeper because you don't link summon too often in this deck. So that's it for the deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead, leave a like and subscribe. There are some variants of this deck out there, such as the Mutant Ghoti, and I would love to hear how you all are playing them, if you are playing them, in the comments below. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Later.